Welcome to Tiny Pep Talks for Step Parents, a short weekly podcast with new episodes every Sunday. For today's pep talk, Step 1 of Step Family Success: how to get on the same page as your partner, assuming such a thing is even possible. You might not think that multiple Emmy-winning Hulu series The Bear has all that much in common with step parenting, but I just finished a rewatch and let me tell you, what a metaphor. If you're unfamiliar, the basic plot is that a world-class chef takes over his brother's crappy restaurant after the brother dies. Chef Carmy sees so many areas of daily operations and general management that could be improved, but all his suggestions get met by a collective piss off from the existing staff. It's like they refuse to admit that improvement is even possible, let alone necessary. The restaurant in its initial state is objectively a total shit show. It's clear that changing up the status quo is essential to its survival, and yet no one is willing to make those changes. In fact, they'd rather actively sabotage Carmy's attempts at improvement than try new ways of doing things. I feel like step parents can relate. Finally, Carmy's uncle says something to him like, "Listen, I appreciate you wanting to make that place better, but you've got to be realistic. You can't start at fucked." And I was like, oh man, I wish someone would have told me that back in my earliest step parenting days. It literally took years for Dan and I to get on the same page as a step couple. We spent years arguing in circles before he could even acknowledge that I might have a point about his kid or the ex or so many other jacked up things. And it was longer still before he was able to make any changes. He and I share an equal amount of chagrin and regret over that, which is why we eventually put together this guide called How to Actually Blend: The Missing Instruction Manual for Step Couples. This is one of my favorite resources we have ever created, mainly because it takes step parents out of the shoot the messenger position, but also because we had fun making it. And Dan is such a friggin' breath of fresh air, and I just appreciate him sharing his perspective so much. Step parents cannot build a solid foundation for our families when we're starting from a place of dysfunction, which unfortunately, many of us are, especially if we're seeing red flags in every direction while our partners remain firmly planted in the denial stage of blending. Yes, that is an actual stage of blending your family, by the way. I will leave a link to the official stages and phases of blending your family in the show notes. So, step 1 is getting you and your partner on the same page. If you have tried and failed to do that on your own, I really hope that our guide on how to blend can help. It's free for paid Substack subscribers, so you can come join us over there, or you can snag it as a standalone purchase if memberships aren't your thing. Either way, I will include links for both in the show notes. I know firsthand how horribly lonely step parenting feels when you are the only person in your step family who sees all this potential being squandered. Like Carmy, standing in his dive of a restaurant that could be so much more. I felt like I was the only person who could see the family that Dan and I could create if only he'd stand with me in making changes together instead of just burying his head in the sand. If that's you, I have been there, and I'm sending you lots of love. None of this is easy, but that's why we're here, to help you untangle your stepfamily if we can. Please don't hesitate to reach out. If you're listening to this by podcast, please check the show notes for a link to the full transcript over on Substack, along with an article on the stages of blending and also an article on red flags in your blended family. And of course, our guide on how to actually blend. We would love to see you over there. I hope you join us.